I was looking at a video, and in that video, it was stating that if you vote for Donald Trump and he become president, he's going to bring slavery back. I believe that everyone has a right to choose who they want to vote for. I'm, I'm not for the Democratic Party. I'm not for the Republican Party, but I believe in the truth and for an individual to be able to make an informed decision, not a decision based on lies and not a decision based on fear. So I'm going to go over some information with you, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you. The presidential election of 1936, African Americans voted overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party and in particular for President Franklin D. Roosevelt. However, at the time, their vote was not necessarily seen as a vote for the Democrats, but rather as a vote in support of Roosevelt himself and the policies of the New Deal. The movement of African American voters away from the Republican Party was part of a nationwide shift that has arisen in the creation of the so-called Roosevelt Coalition. This national shift would make the Democrats the majority party for the next several decades. The question of why African Americans shifted their historical allegiance to the Republican Party in the Depression era raises some interesting questions. Was a vote for Roosevelt synonymous with economic recovery in the African American community? Was there an emotional component to the vote? Were Roosevelt and his administration champions of civil rights? Since the conclusion of the Civil War in 1865, African Americans have voted primarily with the Republican Party. The Republican Party was the party of Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. After Lincoln's assassination, the so-called radical Republicans helped to establish the Freedmen's Bureau, passed the Civil Rights Acts of 1866, and drafted the 14th Amendment, preventing states from denying rights to U.S. citizens. In 1868, Ulysses S. Grant was elected president with the help of Southern African Americans who were voted in a presidential election for the first time. During Grant's presidency, the Radical Republicans introduced and ratified the 15th Amendment, which stated that a citizen, male only, right to vote could not be denied because of race, color, or previous conditions of servitude. African American, particularly former slaves, became loyal members of the Republican Party. When Reconstruction ended in 1877, Southern Democrats regained power and began passing and implementing laws restrictions such as the poll tax, literacy test, and grandfather clause, effectively disenfranchising much of the new African American electorates. In addition, the southern states passed a series of Jim Crow laws which regulated most areas of private and public life. The end of Reconstruction also marked the end of the limited national policies courtship of African American voters. African Americans was either stripped of their political rights as in the South or as in the North, the numbers were not large enough to affect the outcome of any election. Increasingly intolerable conditions in the South spurred a movement northward of African Americans during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, known as the Great Migration. However, discrimination was also a fact of life in northern industrial cities. Convenience limited the housing stock available to Black families, and labor unions denied membership to African American workers. Employers frequently hired blacks only as a last resort. In 1896, the Supreme Court legalized segregation in its ruling in Plessy versus Ferguson, saying that separate but equal facilities did not violate the 14th Amendment. Segregation by law in the South and by custom in the North was entrenched in society and law well into the middle of the 20th century. While African American suffrage was secure in the northern and western states, and small numbers of African Americans was appointed to local public office during the tenure of Theodore Roosevelt, on the whole, black possessed little political or economic power at the turn of the century. Southerner Woodrow Wilson ran on the Democratic ticket for the presidency in 1912 with promises of actions on civil rights issues, winning the endorsement of the fledgling National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. But once in office, Wilson did little to advance the cause of equal protection for African Americans. Some historians have concluded that his administration policies in effect reinforced segregation within the ranks of the federal government. This lack of progress in civil, political, and economic rights in the aftermath of World War I led to the loss of the African American vote for the Democrat in the election of 1920. As the black electorate returned to the fold of the Republican Party, African Americans during the period increasingly united around the issues of civil rights and anti-lynching legislation. And predominantly black neighborhoods and major urban centers began to emerge as cohesive voting blocks that could potentially influence the outcome of an election. Sit and say exactly how Donald Trump feels. I cannot say that. So I'm not going to speak on what's in his heart or what's in his mind. What I am going to speak on is the Republican Party is the party that actually freed the slaves. The Republican Party is the party that actually allowed men to vote, because during that time, white women couldn't either vote. It was just men was allowed to vote. The Republican Party gave that right to black men, the ones who just was freed from slavery. They voted for the first time because of the Republican Party. A lot of rights that was put in place to try to protect them was done by the Republican Party. The radical Republicans, that wasn't a group of black people. That was a group of white people fighting for certain things for black people. The party that was trying to stop all this from happening, trying to keep black people as slaves, trying to take away their voting rights once they got it, was the Democratic Party. Those are the ones that wanted to stop black people from having anything, from getting land, the 40 acres and a mule, for getting their freedom, for getting all this. The only reason that the black people, it's kind of sketchy, I didn't get a full understanding of that, but a lot of reasons why the black people went from being voting Republican to voting Democrats is because they bought into the lies that was given to them because of the promises. Just like, for instance, Woodrow Wilson, he made promises to the NAACP, which was a group of black people who told other black people, yes, it's okay to vote for the Democratic Party. They're going to help us. They're going to fight for the civil rights, and they're going to help us fight for this. They're going to give us all this stuff that never came to fruition, that they never got. And I encourage you to do your own research. Don't just go by what I just read to you in this video. I will leave a link to what I went over. But also on your own, look up other information. Do your own research to see how in the beginning, your ancestors that was former slaves, they was Republican. They vote for the Republican Party over the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party wasn't doing anything for them other than taking everything away from them in order to keep them as slaves, in order to keep them ignorant, in order to make their votes mean nothing. So to say that Donald Trump is going to bring back slavery, like I said, I can't, I'm not going to speak on him as an individual because I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know what he's thinking, but slavery it would have to, a lot would have to happen in order for slavery to come back. And I don't think anyone is going to sit back, any black person going to sit back and say, okay, we're going to just allow this to happen, as if we don't have a voice, as if we don't have a choice, or if what we want or what we stand for doesn't matter. It would take a lot for that to go back to the way it was. And that's not going to just, black people is not going to just lay down and let that happen. So to try to use that as fear by saying if you vote for the Republican Party, this is what Donald Trump going to do. He's going to bring back slavery. That's using fear to get a person to do what you want them to do. I don't believe in manipulation. I don't believe in fear tactics. I believe a person should make their decision based on truth and based on information, based on facts. When you read in the Bible and you read, and you read Deuteronomy 30 through 19, and this is ESV. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curses. Therefore choose life that you and your offsprings may live. So God gives us choices. As you go through life, there's always choices to do this, choices to do that, choices, on how you want to live, choices on what you want to eat. You are bombarded with choices, but you have choices. You can choose. No one should be able to take that away from you. Whatever decision you make it based on knowing facts. And that's what I see when I look at the Democratic Party. They don't want you to know facts. They want to push fear on you to make you vote the way they want you to vote. They want to push shame on you. How dare you as a black person not vote for Kamala? How dare you as a black man not vote for Kamala? How dare you put that on someone to take away their right of being independent to vote for whoever they want to vote for or not vote at all? To use scare tactics like, oh, if you vote for the Republican Party, they're bringing slavery back. When slavery, they freed slaves. And then they always say, do your research, do your research. They say that because they know a lot of black people aren't going to do the research. I implore you to research. I implore you to look up the information for yourself. Like I said, I will leave links, but just go on your own and look up history. This is history. This is our history of how we went from being slave to being free. So don't let anyone take that knowledge away from you, and don't let anyone, scare you into voting how they want you to vote. Because what you have to think about, just like with Woodrow Wilson, he made promises. Some people ate off his promises, but the majority of the black people, they did not benefit. And that's the same thing that we see going on now. There are certain black people that are eating off the lives of the Democrat, but when it comes to the majority of black people, they're not benefiting anything. You're having the same conversation year after year after year after year after year. When is the conversations going to change? When is policies are going to be in place that's going to allow you to move forward, advance in life? When is the economy is going to change? When is, a lot of things that's going on now, the border issue and all the stuff that should not be going on, When are all those things are going to change? When the policies are going to be in place? None of those policies are being spoke about. All they're doing is going around pushing fear on people, pushing you to try to, manipulate, trying to control. And in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes 1:9, what has been is what will be. And what has been done, it will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. The same games they're playing back then, when it was Woodrow Wilson, oh, give me your vote, and I'm going to do all this for you. It's the same games they're playing now. There's nothing new in this world. And the reason that I personally emphasize the fact that Kamala Harris is not a black woman, even though they keep trying to push that, is because of this. One, her mother nor her father identify as being black. That's one. Two, you only get one chance of being the first. They're trying to push her and make her the first black woman president. And that's what they're trying to do, make her the first black woman president when she's not black. You can only have one first. You have to think about it this way. If you look in the Bible and you look at Esau and Jacob, Esau sold his birthright to his brother because of what? He was starving. He wanted a bowl of soup, and he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. What are y'all selling y'all daughter's birthright for? There's some black girl, some young black girl that may be out there now or might not even be born yet. And she has the opportunity to be the true first black president of the United States, first black woman president of the United States. But if Kamala Harris is labeled the first black woman president when she's not technically black, then your daughter can never be that. She will always be under that cloud of, yeah, Kamala Harris was the first. Kamala Harris was the first black woman. When in reality, she's not. She won't be, but she would have that title if she won. That's why I keep emphasizing that she is not black. Because why would we want to sell our daughter's birthright? If that child is going to be the first black president, why give that away? For what? Because everybody else pandering? Because of everybody else lies? Because everybody else is trying to push an agenda? And that's all they keep doing, is pushing an agenda on black people and treating them like they're ignorant and treating them, I don't like that. I truly do not like when I see people try to take advantage of other people. And that's what I look at when I see the Democratic Party. They're trying to take advantage of black people. They keep saying be educated, but they don't want you to be educated. It always go back to slavery. The most powerful person on the plantation was an educated black man. That's why they took away books. That's why they didn't want them to read. That's why if you had a book in your hand, that was worse than having a gun in your hand back then. Because they did not want an educated black man, because they know once you're educated, you can make other decisions. You can make decisions that can actually change the world and affect how things go from that point on. And they did not want that. And that's what they're doing now. That's why they're trying to say, how dare you? No, how dare you try to push this on black people when it's not right? Let people make their own decision based on knowledge, based on information, based on facts. What policy is she putting in front of everybody? What is she going to do for this country? What is she going to do for black people? What is she going to do to change this world and get it moving, change what's going on in America to get it moving in the right direction? Let us know something. The only Alpha I care about is God, him being the Alpha and the Omega. That's all I care about when it comes to Alpha and Omega, Greek letters and all that. God say he is the beginning and the end. He is the Alpha and the Omega. That's all I need to know, because that's the only person I serve. I serve God. And as Christians, that's all we should be serving, is God. He is first, and then everything else fall in line. And one of the things that Jesus always spoke about is what? The truth. The truth will set you free. They don't want you to know the truth. Do your research. Learn the truth. Learn your history. Learn why black people was initially, voting Republican before they ever switched over and started voting Democrat. They try to make it seem like the Republican is trying to hold black people down and the Democrats are trying to uplift them. But that hasn't been the history of those two parties. Like I say, I really don't care about Republican Party or Democrat Party, because I serve God. That's where my focus is. That's where my focus will stay. I just want anyone who choosing to vote to understand what they're voting for based on the information they're finding out, understanding why they're voting, understanding what policies are in place. Be an educated voter. That's all I wanted to come on here and say. Don't let anyone bully you out of your vote.